Because, like, I remember reading a Reddit story and someone's like, yeah, I was in the hospital for, like, 3 weeks. And, like, when you're a guy, 3 weeks is a long time. He's like, well, it was nighttime, decided to go. And all of a sudden, just as I was about to finish, 4 nurses came running in thinking I was having a heart attack because my heart rate rocketed up. It's like, that is a ruined finish right there.
I feel like that's their fault.
I mean...
Nobody asked the nurses to barge in while he was wanking it.
Yeah, and at the same time, too, you have to be a little bit more conscious of your surroundings whenever you're doing that kind of thing, because it is a natural thing. Everybody who is anybody up until, I'd say, a certain age, because at my age, I don't. Like, I just don't.
I feel like he was probably in a private suite, so he was like...
He thought he was just
me,
Gucci.
And I'm good. I've got my cell phone. I'm just gonna do the damn thing.
So he decided that in the privacy of his own intensive care room, he would go ahead and, while he's attached to all these cords, man, let me tell you something. I am out of the mood at this point in life. Like, if I've had one too many tacos in my party pack, you know what I'm talking about? Like at this point, like if Tums is having to be consumed in order to keep my stomach acid from coming out my throat, then the idea of intercourse or even any kind of sexual gratification is vastly
like shaking hands with Ben Franklin.
Honestly, it is about like that. It's about like
no. I mean, I was just using that as a reference to it. Shaking hands with Ben
but,
Franklin.
To the idea of me being in a hospital room attached to all these wires, laid up for weeks, that would be the last thing on my mind.
I mean, I'm right there with you. I mean, if I'm sick, I'm like, I don't want loving from anybody, including myself. I just want to lay there and be left alone.
Well, I'm glad we've got an audience full of listeners that have received some lovins to their ears to start off this episode, because this whole story ended up in the cold, soft, open. Yeah. Gotcha! Hi, everybody. I'm Austin Shazam Pfeiffer.
I'm Otto. I promise I was surely on time to record today, Cogdell.
And I'm still not Dane Holland.
I miss Dad.
Dad's been away.
Dad's been away getting cigarettes for so long.
I think at this point, Dad's probably got milk and cigarettes and everything else. Oh, by the way, we're Nerded Through the Grapevine, the podcast where 4 best friends gather weekly to talk about our favorite parts of past, present, and future nerd culture. -1 today, again with Dane, but transitions in life.
Rest in peace.
He's not dead. He just moved to the other part of the state.
Well, for at least 3 episodes, he might as well be.
I can't actively see him. That means he's gone forever.
Yeah.
He'll be back.
Sometimes believing is seeing.
He will be back, and we will have him back with us.
Santa Claus.
But today speaking of Santa Claus, stuff that we believed in and we loved so much whenever we were young men. Let's talk about some things from our past today. A part of the past, present, and future. We're going with past here. Let's talk about some of these shows we used to watch whenever we were kids. Like, talking about like your Nickelodeon and your Disney Channel. Like those two like ruled the airwaves unless you were doing like early morning cartoons with your Saturday morning cartoons on like Fox Kids or Kids WB or something along those lines. Those kind of like later in the 90s and early 2000s started picking up like afternoon programming and having their own television shows based off of, what they thought their demographic was going to listen to. Oh, by the way, speaking of listen to, audience, I apologize if you hear anything that sounds like just clumpy, cracky, clumpy. We're doing a episode here at the Vape Shop, Vape Sack V2, and I had to bring my little Millie friend along with me, so I brought her a bone to chew on so she would have something to do. And if you hear any clippy cloppies the entire episode happening in the background, it's probably because she's trying to destroy this piece of bone.
Yeah, every time I get the mic near her to really pick it up, she stops and sniffs my mic.
Oh, she's actually got to be cleared through legal to be able to be on recordings where she's actually trying to say something.
I had her sign a waiver.
Is she in like witness protection or something? Does Millie have a past life we don't know about?
Well, I really don't ask questions because once we go to sleep at night, she's no longer sleeping in the bed with us. She'll wake up and I'll wake up in the morning and she's sleeping in her bed in the floor. So I guess she's growing up. So today we're going to talk a little bit about like our old television shows that we used to watch, and that's going to span, Disney Channel and Nickelodeon for me. The other guys might have some other opinions on it that they used to watch television shows on. But, I can remember growing up in the early 90s and I would be watching shows like All That. And I'd be watching game shows like Legends of the Hidden Temple, which we've spoke about Legends of the Hidden Temple on here before, just because they had to sign waivers and actually had so many children on the show that couldn't even complete the entire show just because they would be scared so badly of those demon mummy guys popping out from behind the walls.
Yeah.
Like, which way should you turn this statue? I'm going to turn the statue's head to the left.
Right, but it's
There's a demon coming out from behind the wall, and that's a children's television show. Like, hey, let's put these families on here. Let's get these kids and have them, run through this temple maze.
Oh gosh, yeah, that was like the beauty of that, like late, because I'm a little bit younger, so I was more into that like a little bit of late '90s and then mid to early 2000s stuff. But there was like that fun period where you could kind of do whatever, because they would make like children's Fear Factor, and you can kind of just do whatever to kids because it was like, hey man, we'll promise you
that was just youth group.
Well,
yeah,
there was a show on Nickelodeon called Would You Rather that was kind of like that. It's like, would you rather do this or that? And it's always like slimy and gross. And the very kind of kids down version of Fear Factor before Fear Factor. And like, I loved that show. Legends of the Hidden Temple, like those are my jams.
Legends of the Hidden Temple will always just be one of those things in my brain that is just shocking because, I mean, I used to love watching that show so much as a kid. Like, I thought, like, I could do this. I could definitely do that.
Oh, yeah, me too.
But then it turns out, like, these kids were being petrified, like, scared to the point of, like, seizures at some point.
Oh, my gosh.
Just because they would be having to go to this, this is the 90s. Yeah. Stuff is not very realistic. Unless you're there and you're experiencing these things.
Oh, yeah.
And, we were still not desensitized to the way that, like, Disney does stuff these days. Like, the way that you go to a Disney park and it is just like you are entering into a different world.
Well, it's like at that time, everything was kind of kidded down anyway. Like, the world today is a lot more rough than it was then.
Yeah.
So it was a lot easier to be more scared by a guy in a costume than right now. Like, if I saw a dude in a costume, I'd be like, whatever, bro. And
it's furry.
Yeah, that's one of the things. Like, you would automatically assume, like, what can I help you with today? Oh, you're not selling anything. This is just your choice. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I feel like we've hit a point where like the world has gone far enough where it's like weird is just normal now. Because I remember watching some of that stuff and like as a kid, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe like they were getting away with this stuff. But now, as an adult, I'm looking back and I'm like, that's kind of tame compared to like now, like compared to what you see on network TV.
Now.
Yeah,
I mean, I remember the first time I saw a butt on TV that wasn't like censored or have something in front of it. I was watching Breaking Bad, and I was like, oh my god, I just saw Walter White's cheeks. What's going on? And now they almost show you the pain,
Oh yeah, like it just depends on what like network you're showing.
Also, that was terrifying.
What, Walter White's butt or a peen?
Both.
Okay. Back in the 90s, you couldn't have any of that kind of stuff on television, but you'd have to resort to getting on your HBO or Cinemax that you got the previews of when you had the basic cables.
I think you mispronounced Skinamax.
No, it's called Cinemax, but it was notorious for how much skin they be showing.
I mean, when you're paying for it, you can get away with anything. I remember,
or whenever it accidentally comes in on the pay-per-view channel and you don't tell anybody.
I remember also as you get later into the night, because whenever I got a little bit older and like your parents like, oh yeah, you can stay up later. Me and my cousin used to watch the Sci-Fi Network and Comedy Central, and turns out after 12 o'clock they can say the uncensored French words and all sorts of stuff and just be fine with it. And I remember the first time me and him were sitting there playing on our laptops and we heard
French words like escargot,
oui, pee-pee.
Oui, oui.
Yeah,
I
I
gotta
mean,
go
yeah,
take a
they
raging
can say
yes,
all the
as the
French
French
they
say.
want, and French is a very terrifying language. But we both, like, the F-bomb dropped, and we both just looked at each other and looked up, like, did you just hear that on the television? And it was crazy.
It was wild when that kind of stuff would happen because sometimes, honestly, I used to watch wrestling a lot back in the 90s.
dude, back when it was WWF.
Yeah, WWF and WCW would be head to head, like for who is the top dog of the male dominated oiled up soap operas.
Oh yeah,
The Undertaker, obviously.
Well, I don't know because WCW was given
Stone Cold.
They were giving WWF a run for their money for a little while because Goldberg was WCW and Goldberg was a big deal for a long time.
I was more of a Sting guy.
Well, he was also WCW.
I thought he was in WO.
He was in WO that originated on WCW.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I thought NWO branched off to their own thing at one point.
Eventually, whenever WCW went out and all the properties were acquired by the World Wrestling Entertainment at that point.
So are you saying that it caused a lot of discord? There's
Yeah.
a link in the description. Click it. We're on there live, uncut, uncensored, and irrevocably circumcised. Is that what you're saying?
I am saying that if you do get on our Discord, there's a chance you could talk to Sting.
oh.
I mean, I'm not saying it's a high chance, but there's a
There's a
chance.
It's not
Anything is
zero.
possible.
Right, we don't know. I mean, we could have some alter egos. We can have some high-level people that want to tune in to our little show that we put on
I mean,
for 4
I
people.
hear tell Gary Busey's in there under an assumed name. I don't know how true it is.
Does he like talking about buttered sausage?
Actually, I found out last night that was a deep fake.
You
and that
didn't
kind of made
Yeah.
me sad.
Yeah,
it's still funny.
It's
as
a
hell, though.
really good deep fake.
Because, well, that guy, what he does is he does fake interviews with celebrities where they're all like deep faked and AI generated. And that's the one use of AI that I enjoy because it's funny and doesn't hurt anybody. But buttered sausage, I want to talk about buttered sausage.
I don't buy jam, I only buy honey, and I kiss it on the lips.
Oh,
I've been working on an impression actually from the early days. Hold on, let me see if I can get it right because it's coming from a place of, I'm feeling it's like a place of, is it irreverence that I'm thinking of? Someplace that so it's like a little bit brighter. But hold on, so cold, ET. That's all.
I don't know exactly what that was.
I was trying to do. There was a video that went around for a little while of Stone Cold Steve Austin's voice coming out of a puppeteered ET character
I've
going through
never seen
drive-throughs.
God.
If you want a mud hole stumped in your ass from Stone Cold ET, give me a hell yeah.
hell yeah, brother.
But you think?
Getting back on
Oh,
topic.
I was thinking about getting back on topic from what I was saying there
Okay,
because
so you was transitioning.
Yeah, I was
And then I was
transitioning.
trying to transition.
it's okay.
and we cross transitions. Don't
You
cross
cross the
those.
streams.
Those sketches and those things that were done, basically wrestling is just a giant sketch show. Like, it's choreographed, it's dangerous because all of these sketches you're having to do are all physical work.
Dude, like Mick Foley from that time was, I think he probably wasn't the most popular wrestler.
He was
Like,
one
he
of
was
them.
popular, but he was he put in the most amount of work. Like,
Hall
that
of
man
Famer.
was doing things people was terrified to do.
Well, yeah, and he had 3 different alter egos besides just his name, Mick Foley. You had Cactus Jack,
Yep.
Dude Love, and Mankind,
Yep.
which canonically all existed within the same mind of Mick Foley, and it depended on which one you were getting, how bad of a beating you were going to be getting. Mankind was like almost his sweetheart, but like...
But also psychopath.
Yeah, like this Quasimodo style character that's like living in the boiler rooms, and you'd have to find him. And then his main move that he would get you with would be like the mandible claw, where he would choke your life force out from your throat and your mouth. And then it changed later on into the Socko mandible claw. He's like, well, I've got one word for you. It's Socko! And he would pull the sock out of his pants, put it on his hand, and then shove the sock in your mouth and choke you out. And this was real.
God.
Yeah. And the thumbtacks, like that man.
You got to admit, though, 15
he
feet in
was
the air.
in it.
15 feet in the air on the top of a steel cage,
Yeah.
getting thrown from the top of a steel cage through an announcer's booth.
Yeah, he was
Right.
told multiple times not to do that.
And
And Mick went I'm doing it anyway. Like, he went rogue so many times.
Like, he went full
just
blown
for the crowd that he should have died like several times.
I think as far as character personas and people in wrestling go, Mick Foley might be the closest thing to a real-life gladiator that the sport ever saw. And I'm calling it a sport because you do have to be athletic to do it.
Yeah, like those stunts were real. They still did stunts. I've seen videos of like actual hurt compilations.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh no, that was like he took an actual hit there.
I watched somebody die.
Yeah,
I mean,
did too.
I was watching whenever Owen Hart was descending from the rafters and he fell all the way to fell and hit himself. I believe it was right on the turnbuckle and died in the ring. I saw this. It was
wasn't he supposed to like rappel in? Wasn't that what he was doing?
Yeah,
and his rope snapped.
Yeah, because he was it was always one of his shticks was that he was always clumsy in that character.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't he fighting Rey Mysterio
for
that particular match?
I believe it was something like that because his character because it wasn't Owen Hart in quotations. It was a different character he was portraying that was like a masked character. But like Hulk Hogan did that same thing too. Yeah. To where it's like, you know who this is.
Hulk Hogan did that mainly when he was over in like the let me try that again. He did that mainly when he was over in like Japan.
No, there was a point he was fired, in quotations, from the World Wrestling Federation, and he actually went back under the guise of a person in a mask. But of course, he had like the Batman cowl.
Yeah. It started when he went to Japan, and then okay, I'm tracking.
So you've got like this red, white, and blue American looking superhero with a cowl cut out at the bottom of his face like what Batman has, and of course there's a blonde Fu Manchu.
Yeah,
so he's on there screaming at Vince McMahon about all this and that. But it's just like a giant sketch comedy show. And I used to watch a giant, well, I wouldn't say comedy, it's a lot of drama in there too, but there used to be one that I watch all the time on Nickelodeon called All That.
Oh yeah, and loved that show.
And luckily Otto is of the age group that got to see the second iteration of All That, so he would have a little bit of a relevance in his brain for All That, because our generation of All That was over by the time Otto was watching television.
Yeah. It was like a kid's Saturday Night Live, which that's what they were going for.
Yeah.
And like I remember as a kid it being such a good show, had like all these cool little bits. I mean, it put kids in the role of adults, like they played cops and all kinds of stuff. So it wasn't just like, here's another sketch about a kid in school. It was about like things that could possibly happen, but with a comedic bent to it.
I can remember they had their own spin-off series as well called Kablam.
Yeah, and the Amanda Show.
Yeah. But the Kablam stuff was actually like animation and different stuff that was put into All That for like little snippets here and there for stuff. Then Kablam became its own like television series with the different types of animation and everything. They had Action League Now.
Yeah,
they had I think it was.
I mean, it spun off so many things, like Keenan and Kel.
Yeah, that was off All That.
Spun off the Good Burger movie, the first and only one that should ever exist.
Yeah, All That actually was the direct source for Good Burger. That was some characters they would play on this sketch.
He's a dude, she's a dude, 'cause we're all dudes. Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually a song.
Who loves orange soda?
Kel loves orange soda. It's true.
I do. Ooh.
The what was it? It was Good Burger. I think it might have been a ska band called either Real Big Fish or Less Than Jake. Actually, did a real version of the "I'm a Dude" song, and awesome. It was as good as you thought it would be.
So it's amazing.
Well, sure. It is about that good.
I mean, all ska music is perfect, so it has to be amazing. Yeah, ska is the one true music genre.
I mean, look, ska as a music genre is way better than it has any right to be.
Right. It's like emo, but it's like I also have a trombone. It's like I have all these emotions, and I'm in band. It's just perfect, really. But
it's almost like a pop band and, I don't know, like a jazz band or something had illegitimate butt baby.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's something that the band was actually called the MPCs. I forgot. That's such a bop.
Yeah.
It's time to put our ties behind. Get all the bad He's off your mind. He's feeling good. She's feeling good. We're feeling good, yeah. Just hanging out, just having fun. We're number one. Just hanging out, just having fun. I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude. We're all dudes.
Didn't they put this in the movie?
I think that was in the
I
movie.
feel like they did.
And I'm so happy that people are being able to just walk around with their headphones in right now, listen to the soothing sounds of our voices, and hear some random ska. They're going to be walking through their workplace, just listening to their headphones like they're not supposed to be doing in the first place, and start bopping. You can't help but bop.
You just culturalized many people.
It happens. They had ska shoved into their ears and didn't realize just how happy it would make them until it happened.
It feels like it licks your brain, but in like the most pleasing manner.
It kind of activates that sense of, well, we're three Caucasian males sitting here, so hearing ska to me activates.
And Millie,
well, she doesn't count because
she's a Shizubashan.
She's a Shishan and she's little, so she doesn't count to the podcast. She didn't want to be a part of it. She's actually napping now. But I think that I identify with ska. As soon as I hear it, I instantly want to try to skateboard. But then I realize I can't because I tried when I was younger, and
we break now.
It just ends up in injury. I got injured as a young man trying to skateboard because I'm not very coordinated. I could ride, but I could not do stuff. And nowadays it would only be just that much worse because if I got hurt as a young man, as an old man, I'd be ended.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you haven't fallen down after you hit 18, it hurts a lot because that ground is really far down. I fell the other day.
Wait till you hit 30.
I missed a step and went down, and my shoulder still hurts. And it's one of those this is an injury that I would have bounced back from if I was 10, 15 years younger because your bones are still soft.
Yeah, I at one point actually tripped and did not fall all the way, and ended up actually being able to catch myself and pulled a muscle in my shoulder from my body jerking so hard because I knew that I was falling that it strained something in my shoulder. That's what we live through now.
I've woken up with sprained ankles and knees and shoulders and all kinds of stuff. It's gotten to the point that I have completely coated my entire skeletal system with PVC, and I'm like a Dollar General Wolverine. But you know what? My stuff works.
Right. Yeah,
I just wanted to throw that in there.
I've been living on BioFreeze and a heating pad because once you hit a certain age, those things just appear in your house, and you'll use them more than you think you will.
Just PVC your skeleton like I did. I feel like I'm 16 all over again.
Yeah, and those crackles that you hear are actually just the PVC degrading bit by bit, not his actual bones popping.
No, it's just when they rub together.
He doesn't just have the microplastics; he has the macroplastics in him as well.
Absolutely. Well, see, it just coats the bones, not replaces the bones.
See, Otto, you were a Nickelodeon cartoon boy, so you were the Avatar and your Hey Arnolds and your Dougs.
Wild Thornberries.
Oh, I love Wild Thornberries. Sid off of Wild Thornberries, I think that was his name.
Right. Or that's just the meth head that appears in front of your store at right before close.
That's
or at the stop sign by your house. Tiny
and myself both now work at vape stores. Whenever we decide that we want to work at vape stores, and it is a it's a fun thing to see who all shows up.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes the people watching is unparalleled.
See, Grape Sack V1 is located right in front of the Greyhound bus station, so you get not only the best that your town has to offer, you get the best that the country's transit system has to offer.
Mm-hmm. The poor transit.
Yeah,
I mean, not to bash anybody that takes the bus because it's cheap, but who takes the bus?
Well, most of the time, people that and honestly, and it just comes from a learned stereotype as opposed to a preconceived stereotype. My learned stereotype is they're hard up.
Yeah, same.
It's hard up to the point that it could be a hard up that you've caused. But there's a lot of.
Do you need a tissue?
Oh no, I was just simulating cocaine, and it's just drugs. Most of the time, that's what I get the sense of drugs. Because they're the ones who'll come into the store that we sell vaporizing products and ask, "Where are our rose pipes?"
Oh yeah,
that's happened multiple times now.
Gosh.
I've desensitized slightly to it.
It's gotten to the point that I want to create a sign just so I have to stop saying it.
Oh yeah,
because I'm not even polite about it anymore.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah, as soon as somebody says it and they ask for one, I'm just like, My customer service shuts off, and I'm like, how dare you try to procure a meth smoking device in my establishment? But I digress.
Right. So,
oh gosh, The Adventures of Pete and Pete.
Oh my dude,
Danny
like
Timberelli.
Salute Your Shorts.
Yeah.
because
I have all of both of those on my Plex server. By mine, I mean the one that I used but do not own.
right. Because you would never own any pirated material. I mean, that's illegal.
Well, see, I don't know where the things were procured from.
Right.
I just stream it like Netflix.
They just happen to appear.
I don't procure things.
You see, Tiny treats his watchings almost like somebody does a Pokemon encounter on the old games. You know, well, I was just walking through the tall grass. Dun 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 dun.
Look, here's the thing: you can own anything on digital. You just can't share it with other people.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. Don't be like our missing co-host and download the entire anthology of Michael Jackson's. No, it was the entire.
I thought he did it to Garth Brooks of all things.
I think it was either Garth Brooks or Michael Jackson. He had downloaded the entire discography and he forgot to stop it from seeding.
Oh,
So the internet was like, "Here's a letter. We're watching you."
Yeah. No, that's the dangerous thing. But I came in a little bit late because I didn't get satellite until like 0203. Before that, we had Rabbit Ears, so I was a PBS kid. But I remember loving Toon Disney. I watched a lot of like Avatar: The Last Airbender. Oh Lord, there was so many. I think Power Rangers.
Was that Toon Disney or Toon Nick?
Nicktoons?
Nicktoons, yeah.
Sorry, my brain no worky. But I did watch a lot of Toon Disney as well. I watched a little bit more of that because, like, sadly, whenever like I was getting around to Nickelodeon for as far as cartoons, it was pretty much SpongeBob or Fairly Odd Parents or Danny Phantom, which all are good. And then I watched a little bit of live action. It was like the iCarly kind of thing, a little bit of Ned's Declassified. And then Toon Disney I watched a whole bunch of just because there was like more stuff on there.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I'm just trying to, I don't know, just trying to gauge a time. Do you know who Face is?
I do not.
From Nick Jr.?
No, because as I remember seeing that, but it was more of a, by the time that was rolling around, I was like, I'm too old for that.
I remember Face off of Nick Jr. He would always tell everybody, "Thanks for coming and watching me here on Nick Jr. My name's Face." Burp, burp, burp.
Look, I mean, when I had cable, because at one point when I was a young warthog, the smallest of warthogs, we had cable, and then we transitioned to antenna.
Just because
later.
they had their expensives, and then they're like, we don't want to pay for expensives, so then they went to antenna.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, there was reasons, but they're not podcast appropriate as to why things changed. But anyway, summertime, dude, I watched Nick Jr. I didn't care. I was like, there's Face, man. Like, I was not the demographic, but it's like, I'm not going to school. What else am I doing, I want to watch cartoons.
I agree with the cartons, especially cartons that have awesome freestyle raps that start at the beginning of them, like Obtuse, Rubber Goose, Green Moose, Guava Juice, Giant Snake, Birthday Cake, Large Fries, Chocolate Shake, Odd Parents, Fairly Odd Parents, Wands and Wings, Floaty Crowny Things.
Oh yeah, that was one of my favorites because especially back then, it was before they kind of like once a show hits like 5 seasons, it needs to end, and that's kind of where Fairly Odd Parents was whenever I got out of it. But it was so fun, and then Danny Phantom is another one of my favorite ones. What was her name? The goth girl on there definitely altered my brain chemistry a little bit.
Are you saying she was hot?
Yes.
Oh, the goth on Fairly...
The goth girl on Danny Phantom.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Forgot about that. He's the one with the power. Danny Phantom. I remember a show that was consumed by my eye holes much, much before the time that my eye holes were understanding the humor going on in it, and that was Ren and Stimpy.
Oh yeah. Well, apparently there was two edits. There was the made-for-TV, like, kids-style edit, and then later there was an adult edit. Even though the kids one was still way beyond what it should be for children.
Right. So if you go onto clips online and see the Ren and Stimpy that are like very overtly, like clearly not even trying to be non-sexual, that was actually made for Spike TV back when Spike TV started, because Ren and Stimpy ran on Cartoon or on Nickelodeon for a while. And then it eventually got canceled. And then when Spike TV started to become a thing, the guy channel for men and dudes and bros, they rehired the guy that made Ren and Stimpy and tried to make like an adult version of it. So the ones that are like clearly just sexual was actually a completely different. It was like Ren and Stimpy after show or something.
Well, I'm not even talking about like sexual stuff in Ren and Stimpy. I'm just talking about like
It was just grotesque.
Yeah, like the grotesqueness of it. And not only that, they were dealing with stuff that was, put into the show that was like not even questioned. Like Ren and Stimpy, like were they best friends or were they homosexuals?
Yeah,
like,
I mean that was straight up in just the kids at it.
Yeah, and nobody made a question about it. They were married actually in several episodes. They were married, and they would have like one episode they were having to get married because it was like a shotgun wedding. Because, well, how did this happen? I don't know, Ren. Like it was like Stimpy was pregnant.
Oh, wow.
And like Ren was like, well, it's clearly mine, so we better get married. So they get married, and then Stimpy goes into birth, and like goes into childbirth, and he does give birth to the biggest brown cloud of gas that they've ever seen, and they've done everything they could to keep that gas trapped in the house so they could raise it as their own. And you got like this, you got this little fart cloud rolling around with like one of those hats that have the propellers on the top of it and stuff, and it looks like a kid. Then one day they leave the door open and it leaves, and it's like, no, our baby. So it's just like, no wonder we got warped brains because we watched that. I mean, All Real Monsters. I don't know if you ever watched that.
Dude, that was my jam.
Dude.
With Ickis and Crom and
what was the other one's name?
Was it Ublina?
I think it was Ublina. Something like that. Yeah, she was the tall, almost looked like a candy cane come to life.
Yeah. I also have all the episodes of those.
Right. Well, I remember hearing about Rocco's Modern Life too. Didn't he like work at a sex hotline or like a phone chat line or something?
I believe
Rocco. He had a few different jobs throughout the course of the show.
Oh man, and Rocco was chock full of just different adult material too.
Dude, like the first episode talks about bankruptcy and why you shouldn't use a credit card.
I remember there was an episode to where he had a turtle pal named Philbert.
I'm nauseous.
And he's
I'm nauseous.
Yeah.
I'm nauseous.
Philbert, what are you read? What are you reading? And then Philbert would be like, "Oh, I'm just in here checking the magazines out. Oh, you never know who's going to look at these magazines, though. You got to turn the page and then wash your hands.
Oh, no.
And then you turn the page and you wash your hands. You got to turn the page and then wash your hands." That's Millie. There's Millie chewing. He got her on recording. Listen. She's doing such a good job. It's like a nature documentary.
She is such a good little podcaster.
But Rocco was always so funny because, I mean, his best friend's name was Heifer. Heifer was a cow who lived in a house full of wolves.
Oh, God.
Heifer's parents were wolves, and he was adopted, but they never talked about it.
Well, he didn't. I think in one episode somebody told him he was adopted, and he lost his shit.
And then you had Mr. and Mrs. Bighead that were the neighbors next door. They were like,
frogs.
They look like frogs. Mr. Bighead, the way he talked. Like it just, I just remember so much stuff from that. His dog's name was Spunky. Yeah,
man, I remember he had a dog.
Yeah,
his dog's name was Spunky, and you would have a little Australian wallaby. He wasn't a kangaroo; he was a wallaby, which are like
definitely not a kangaroo.
Those are small kangaroos, but he had he was a wallaby so as an Australian wallaby, just running around all the time, chasing after his dog, just yelling, "Spunky! Spunky! 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 Spunky!" Like.
Yeah,
that's not what we think of now when we hear Spunky.
No. Especially for a dog,
We think of those socks that can walk themselves.
Those ones that keep standing up.
Oh, never mind. So I mean, there was Rocko's Modern Life, All Real Monsters. I mean, Nickelodeon alone, Doug. Anybody remember Doug? Doug was a pretty good show. I mean,
Shut up, football head.
that was Arnold.
Oh yeah.
That was Hey Arnold.
Yeah. No, Doug. He had the superhero where he wore like a belt on his head,
Quail
and his underwear
Man.
on the outside. Yeah, and he was in love with Patty Mayonnaise.
Yeah.
and his best friend was Skeeter. And he
Yeah.
like did this thing with his nose.
Yeah.
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 Wasn't Stoop Kid on that, or was that Arnold?
That was also Hey Arnold. Stoop
Okay.
Kid's afraid to leave his stoop. You see, but they're nothing alike in animation too, which is funny. So it's
Sure they
so
are.
it's just the blender of the blender of the brain. Like, wait, did this not happen on Hey Arnold? Well, no, didn't Arnold's best friend's cat, like one of his bullies' cats, like get pregnant and give birth at his house or something like that? No, wait, that was Doug. Because he was like, he had this arch nemesis that was like green skinned with red hair, wore a leather jacket and was always like the school bully, and he was cat sitting for
Didn't
him.
his hair look like bacon?
Yes, his hair did look like a few strips of bacon. Kind of looked like Macklemore, actually.
He
I thought it
walked.
kind of looked like Dane on a Tuesday night. You know, the hair.
No, he doesn't have that.
Well, when he had that,
Oh, okay.
because he was a holdout.
He was a holdout on the Baldman thing. He just
Hey,
decided
hey, you can't say it. You have hair.
barely.
That's our word.
Dude, it's creeping back there so far. I look like the Prince of all Saiyans.
He's got a power
That's
up.
that's an anime joke, and if you ever look up Vegeta from Dragon Ball Z and look up that man's hairline, that's what I got.
He's got the widowest of widow peaks.
It looks like I got the golden arches on my forehead.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's one thing I'm hoping that I have gotten a little bit of some thinning up, and I'm like, oh no, I don't want to lose. I don't want to be a hat guy yet. But you know, aging is aging.
Let's think about it some more, because you also had your Disney Channel that you would go along with, but the Disney Channel always seemed a little bit more kiddie than the actual Nickelodeon stuff was.
Gargoyles.
Gargoyles was
That was the best cartoon show in the world.
But here in Manhattan, the spell is broken, and we live again.
You know, that was a decent Goliath. Not gonna lie.
Dude, I used to watch so much of that show, even like on into like the third season of it, to where it was just like, we're going to explore the waters of Babylon and go into this different plane of existence that doesn't actually exist within the real world. And then the show stopped. So I got nothing. It's all that, like the Gummy Bears off the Disney Channel.
Bears bouncing here and there.
And-
Gummy bears.
Yeah, that one. I know that.
Wearing underwears.
I
Gummy bears.
unfortunately
coming
remember
downstairs.
most theme songs
Gummy
from back in those
bears.
days.
Yeah.
Because that was what I was babysat by, was the television. So when we had cable, like, I would watch all of these shows on Nickelodeon and all these shows on Disney Channel, just depending on which one it was. Like, Gummy Bears was one of those that every time that I watched it, like, I was zoned into that television, because Gummy Bears, they had this secret potion that was made by gummy bears. Then gummy bears were actually a little breed of like little child-sized bears that existed, like mythological, magical creatures and all this other stuff.
They were kind of like the Care Bears, but a little different.
Dashing and daring, courageous and caring. I'm not getting into
Oh
it.
gosh. Or
Gummy-
is this just going to be an episode of Austin Sings the theme song?
That's what's in my head, and unfortunately that's what everybody has to listen to. But gummy bears, they were bouncing here and there and everywhere. There was high adventure that's beyond compare. They were the gummy bears. That's what it said. The gummy berry juice,
I thought my rendition was spot on.
it was damn close, Tiny.
Oh, yeah.
It was real damn close. The gummy berry juice would actually give super strength to humans. It would not do it. It would make gummy bears actually gummy. They would turn into like spring bouncy, like all these other things. Like they would turn into like bouncy balls, like those like
so it was
quarter.
like
Like Super
liquid
Bowls?
pot.
Yeah. Huh?
So it was like pot, but for gummy bears.
Oh, not at all. No,
It
they
was
were
more like cocaine.
It was a little bit more like cocaine. They were bouncing off the walls. But for humans, it would give them super strength. So it's a little bit
like
more
the
like meth. And dude, go figure that the second that a human gets a hit of it, like every human has to have some. So
like meth.
and go figure that the things that are helping the humans get it are a bunch of deformed ogres.
Yep.
I mean, you know.
So yeah, gosh, the gummy bears.
Tailspin.
Oh my
Tailspin.
god!
Oh no, that's different. I was thinking DuckTales, but no, Tailspin,
DuckTales,
man.
yeah.
Tailspin.
With the plane. Yeah, that's what it is.
One of my favorite, like,
Spinning like we spinning in, beginning when we went in, spinning in the air when you're spinning.
one of my favorite ones from Toon Disney was Dave the Barbarian, which
That's past my time.
it is, and it
Same.
only ran for like one season, but it has the most, like, it really explains a lot of like my generation's humor, just the absurdist or the like straight out in front of you like dry humor. There's one where it's like, so the whole premise of the show is there's this royal family. The parents, the king and queen, leave to go fight evil, so they leave the city's like kingdom in charge of the daughter, which is a prince. They have Dave, which is their barbarian, but he's actually like really scared of everything. But he's like this big buff macho guy, which is the brother, and then the littlest daughter, which is like, think Donnie from Wild Thornberries, but can speak English. And
Donnie, that was his name.
everyone calls her a
Yeah.
monkey, but she's not a monkey, but it's because she's like in this little like caveman get up, and it's just the most like it. I watched it recently, and it's like it's just really kind of everyone was throwing things at the wall. But there's this one joke that always sticks out in my mind where it's like Dave quickly thinking constructs a bullhorn out of a squirrel and a bullhorn, and it's just stuff like that where it's just like they you think they're going to zigzag, but they just zag and then run into the wall, and then it's great. And it's all on YouTube for free, so you can look it up. It's called Dave the Barbarian.
I just had a memory from my childhood that I'd forgotten that I remembered.
What?
So there used to be a local TV channel here in Cookeville,
Was
right?
it? Well, no, it's just local access, like the PBS stuff.
Yeah, but hold on. So around the time was the time of the Ghostbusters cartoon, and they were doing this big ad campaign, and somehow they got contracted with that local, or the local TV show got contracted to be able to do the promotion, right? And they're like, draw us like your favorite thing from the Ghostbusters cartoon show, right? So I drew a Slimer, I mailed it in, and I received one of all of the guys from the show.
The real Ghostbusters.
Yeah, the Ghostbusters.
That's what they were called.
gosh.
Like because they had a conflict of interest between like Ghost Space Busters and Ghostbusters.
Yep.
So they had to call them the real Ghostbusters
Yep.
as far as the toy and animation
Yeah.
line was concerned.
Yeah, but their proton packs were a little more fantastical. They were like brightly colored, and
Yeah.
some of them kind of looked like bugs. I received one of all four of them.
And they don't exist anymore.
They do not exist anymore, and that makes me sad.
Oh yeah, that'd be like a cool collectible.
But that was like the coolest thing. I also had the toys from, I can never remember the show, but it was like the monkey guys in space that were like superheroes. The name's like 1,000,000 miles long. Like Captain Simeon, something.
yeah,
Oh, yeah,
that's in there. I can remember that
I think
too.
we've talked about that one before because I also thought it was a different monkey in space thing.
I used to be. I actually learned how to draw from watching a child's television show on PBS.
Oh, really?
And it wasn't Bob Ross, oddly enough. That was later in life whenever I learned how to paint some things. Early on in
Bob
life,
Ross.
I learned how to draw from a man named Pappy Druitt.
I don't think I ever saw that.
Pappy Druitt even had its own theme song, and I'm not going to continue singing.
Well,
but
wait, but your mom's Pappy.
my mom's nickname is Pappy. Yes, that is true. But
Well,
Pappy,
did your mom have a TV show? With
she did
Druid
not.
stuff?
This was an old man. His name was Pappy Druitt, and
I mean, look, in 2024.
it said Pappy Druitt. He drew Pappy Land, and you too can do it. When you're in Pappy Land, he just taught you how to draw, and he was surrounded by all these like puppets and things like that. That would be just like, well, today, boys and girls, we're going to learn how to draw. Da 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 da. Or whatever he would, because he would show us how to draw all these different things, and I would remember how to draw all this stuff. And it was like I was like 4 or 5 years old, and I was like drawing like pictures of people like praying and kneeling and like picking flowers or things like that, just because I learned how to draw on Pappy Druitt,
Yeah.
and I can retain that kind of stuff. Like, is your boy a genius? No, he's just really focused on this one thing right now.
Give it about a week.
Give it a little bit. I can still draw pretty well, but mostly I just limit myself to drawing dogs, just because I like I make my own little cartoons of Millie.
And yet you've never drawn Nola.
Well,
My dog.
I actually did draw a pity not too long ago, and I meant to send it to you. So I'll look it up. I'll look it up in my
I mean,
pictures and send it to you.
Because pitties are like the best dogs.
They are fun. They're fun to draw because their faces are just a little bit different. Like the way that they're constructed.
They're like your grandpa's big wide bicycle seat.
Yeah.
Their head shape always reminds me of like generic dog head shape, but wider. It's like you take a golden retriever head, you shorten the nose, and then just widen it by like 4 inches, and you have a pity head.
Yeah, and you give it that eyebrow ridge.
Yeah, and then that head that will headbutt you in the gut at.
Dude, mine will just straight up headbutt you in the face. Mm-hmm. Like she was looking at me this morning and she sneezed and got me right in the eyeball.
Yeah, I feel like that's
I'm surprised I don't have a black eye, like for real.
Yeah, that's how all bulldogs are. Because I have an English bulldog Boston Terrier, and he has straight up whipped his head back into my shin before, and it felt like I got kicked in the shin. And he didn't even flinch; it didn't hurt him at all.
No, never does.
There were other shows too that happened whenever we were growing up that were, Hey Arnold, Cat Dog, Cow and Chicken on Cartoon Network.
Rugrats.
Did y'all ever see the anatomical drawing of Cat Dog?
I wouldn't want to. That sounds scary.
Like somebody did like a cross section and try to figure out how their anatomy would link up, and then they told you why that they would just die.
I mean, there's no butthole. There's no butthole.
Well, he kind of postulated that it was in the middle of their torso, and it was more like a cloaca.
That would be fine with me. Better than dog coughing up a hairball on the opposite end of the body from where a cat had licked everything. That just the show is just crazy. I mean, Angry Beavers.
Oh yeah, Angry Beavers.
Daggett and
like
Norbert.
2 seasons.
Yeah, and it was like
so good.
They had like this beard growing episode to where they were growing their beards out, but it wasn't them growing their beards out. It was them growing their teeth out.
Oh, yeah.
So instead of they just got tired of shaving. So like their beaver gnaws that they would have to do to be able to actually so they stopped like chewing down their chompers, and they let their chompers grow out to the point to like they were walking around with like ZZ Top, fuzzy white costumes on, like for the video to legs, and everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, look at those teeth! Oh, that's so long and luxurious." And then like circa 4 days later, the teeth have grown to the point to where they're starting to get knots in them.
Oh God, gotta brush your teeth.
Like it was almost kind of realistic in a way because beavers are rodents, and rodents' teeth never stop growing.
Yeah,
and so if they don't continually chew on stuff, they'll get to where they can't eat and they'll pass away because their teeth basically hold their mouths open and they starve.
Yeah, which is it is sad, but I mean that's just the way that they did it on that show. Just to kind of represent somebody not shaving their beard and growing their beard out, and oh no, now my beard's all knotted up, and it's a real thing. I mean, my beard is a foot long, and I go to sleep and I wake up sometimes, and I have to do my preliminary conditioning and brushing in the morning. Otherwise, I'm going to walk around with a bird's nest under my neck all day.
Have you tried doing a beardy tail before you sleep?
No,
it's like a ponytail, but on your face.
I don't do that just because of the way. Because I tried it for a little bit, and the way that it actually takes and pulls the hair in different directions, like it'll give me sore spots in my beard, and I don't like that. Yeah. I don't like my beard to hurt.
No, that reminds me of like every guy that turns like 23 and like his beard finally starts to grow up, and then it's like I'm just gonna grow it out, and it looks like a tumbleweed growing there.
That's because those young punks that do it, they don't understand the care and maintenance that goes into a beard. Like mine is not the best example. I'm not gonna pretend that it is, but at least I do some stuff. Mm-hmm. They do no stuff, and it looks like steel wool that's just been roughly treated and goes everywhere.
Yeah, my beard, if I move my head like I'm saying no, it flows off the bottom of my face and sways back and forth like Fabio hair.
Sometimes when we're playing disc golf, I judge win by at what degree your beard is
That's
to left
true.
or right.
Yeah, like you can judge a pretty good win. Like if it's all the way like making a T shape with the bottom of my chin, and then my beard is pointing out a different direction, like for a fact it's like 10-mile-per-hour wind.
Yeah, like I know if your beard's at like a 45, I need to throw slightly to the left or right of where I'm wanting to go because the wind's going to pick it up.
Depending on which direction my beard is pointing, left to right. Yeah. Yep, that's very true. I actually was called a windsock the other day. That I walked into a store and somebody's like, like a windsock, and I was wearing gray sweatpants, so I was like, what are you talking about? I looked down and I was like, what are you talking about? It's not doing anything. Oh, my beard. because of the wind, I felt absolutely stupid. You know what else made me feel absolutely stupid and outraged and about every human emotion that one can have for somebody that they don't know?
The show Quiet on the Set.
The show Quiet on the Set.
Oh, that
for
was
real, dude.
heartbreaking.
And this is my full circle in what's brought me into touch here recently with a lot of these shows that I used to watch as a child. This is something that's on HBO. It's streaming on, well, it's Max is what it's called.
Yeah,
but
it's HBO Max.
it is a documentary series going in depth
Docuseries.
into the lives of the kids and the tortures they had to put up with in the 1990s.
Well, not just the kids, the writers too.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yeah, except for this episode.
like not
watching
just
it,
like adults and children alike were not safe in that environment.
Yeah, I mean, watching that show was one of the most heartbreaking things because, like, when talking about all that and the Amanda show and all the various shows on there showing you the atrocities going on behind the scenes, I went from nostalgia to just disgusted and just sad for these people.
Well, it's horrific. Otto, have you watched any of it?
Yes, I actually watched it all the way through, and it's one of those, like, because it mainly focused on the Disney stuff, but it's like those are problems that go over all of
Nickelodeon.
You mean
children's
Nickelodeon?
television or Nickelodeon.
Yeah. It's
like,
okay. We got you. We're
yeah,
here for you.
But through Nickelodeon, and it's heartbreaking because it's like, I remember growing up and thinking, man, it'd be so cool to be one of those kids because, like, you see them having fun and doing all this stuff, and then you, like, you know, watch stuff like that, and you're like, oh my God, like,
Yeah.
it's horrifying what these poor kids went
and
through.
like some of the kids, like one fella, I cannot remember his name. He was one of the African American fellas on all that. What his purpose of being on that show, he kept saying over and over, was he wanted to make money to get his family out of this horrible living situation that they were in. So he kept going in. He just was like making do with all the racist situations that the producer Dan Schneider was putting him in, and it was sad because here's a child trying to think about his family's future, his parents,
and it's
wanting to better his entire family's situation and give them all a brighter future.
His dream
and
to
he's
be
having to endure this just misery.
And his literal thing that he was going for was, he said, I want to get my family out the hood. And he had said that a few times, and then he has said, and then the characters they would have me portraying would be stereotypes from the hood that was just totally playing on the life that I was forced to be around.
Yeah.
Because he was having to play like drug deal, like
Yeah.
a drug dealing kid. Of course, he was popping open this bag full of candy.
No, it was Girl Scout cookies.
Oh yeah, Girl Scout cookies. That's
And
what it
it's
was.
like, you're a boy, and he's like looking around, like looking for cops. He's like, don't tell nobody.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll
and,
hook
like,
you up.
also, a lot of these kids, it's like their dream to be on television. It's like Drake Bell, which he has his own past of horrible things that he's done, but still is like his whole dream was, I wanted to be on television. I wanted to make people laugh. I wanted to do this thing.
Well, the bad things he did, I think, was almost him trying to cope and get past the own things that he did. Not that what he did wasn't wrong,
right.
but I think he was still, like he even said in the docuseries that he's going to therapy, like he would never do those kinds of things.
There's a fifth
And
episode.
There's a fifth episode.
It is
now.
coming out with, and I just read about it yesterday. There's a fifth episode of Quiet on the Set that is going to be premiering within the next couple weeks. That is an in-depth dive into Drake, as far as to why he decided to speak out, the conditions in which he was put through, even more, just and more in-depth talk. Just because it's, I don't support somebody that causes harm to the young folk.
No.
I don't. But it is not a surprise to me to see that they have been groomed in such a way to where they think that now their brains are skewed. Like their brains no longer comprehend right and wrong the same way that a normal brain would comprehend right and wrong. It's what have you been conditioned for? And their conditioning has had them put into this horrible situation since they were like 10. I think he started on like the Amanda show when he was like 10 or 11, something like that. And these conditions they were put into from the time of being a child developed the way that their brain matured.
Right. And the worst parts were happening when he was like 15. That's like some very formative years. So ever since he was a child to there, it kept ramping up and getting worse and worse and worse.
And there was a specified producer for the show. He was either a producer or a casting agent or something along those lines.
Brian Peck.
His name was Brian Peck.
He was the dialogue coach.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, you were with the actors 24/7 when you're a dialogue coach. You're trying to talk to them about the proper ways to say stuff, this and that puts him at instant access to all of the children at any point he wants them. And he was actually found, because of the trial and the things that happened with Drake Bell, he was found guilty and registered as a sex offender for children.
Yeah, for doing some of the most heinous things to a child, to Drake Bell.
Circa not even a month later, he was hired by Disney.
Yeah,
I think he was sentenced to what, 16 months in prison?
Yeah, which is
No.
Yeah,
He was
sentenced to something.
He was sentenced to prison, and then
he ended up getting a short stay in jail and community service, and got right back to work in the same environment.
He got hired on to the Sweet Life of Zach and Cody, and right after that.
And I went to a Supernatural convention not too long ago, and the sheriff on on a few seasons of Supernatural that's a repetitive character on there that comes back, a recurring character. Her name is Sheriff Jody, and Sheriff Jody on Supernatural was the mom on Sweet Life of Zach and Cody. And this was probably about a decade ago, before any of this stuff was being talked about or said. I'm going to let you know, you heard it on the Grapevine first, that it's only a matter of time before Disney has their day in the light for the kind of actions that were taken against kids for their shows.
You can't tell me that similar things didn't happen there, because it's the same type of show. They hired a registered, convicted pedophile to work on a children's show.
Yes.
Yep.
They willingly hired a pedophile
to work on a children's show.
To work with children.
Millie dropped the bone.
Millie's upset too.
She did. She threw the bone down in frustration. She said, "Don't treat them kids bad."
Yeah, and it sucks too, because a lot of these people, like, to go a little bit onto like Sweet Life of Zach and Cody. So, the lady that played the mom, the director and producers used to be pretty
hot.
She was pretty hateful towards her, and Dylan and Cole Sprouse, since they were the stars, they were like the show's named after them. They would step in and have to stand up and tell these adult producers, like, "Hey, you can't treat people like that. Like, you have to, treat her with respect." And there's a similar thing.
That's bad when small children have to stand up because the adults won't.
Yeah.
And because I watched iCarly growing up, like that was more my like era of like.
Apparently there was a bunch of stuff on there too.
Yes,
Jerry Trainer, thankfully,
he's
the guy
awesome.
that played the brother, he was like the best. Like
he was
one
like
of the
a
few
shield
that did his best to stop horrible things happening to these girls.
Like, and he would see Dan like gravitating too much about hanging around like this young girl and and he would all of a sudden be like, "Hey Dan, don't we actually have to do over in this direction?" And that man was a saint for it.
Yes, and he would actually like body block for these little girls. Yeah. There's one particular episode where like Carly falls asleep in the living room or whatever, and he's supposed to carry her off to bed, and because Dan Schneider's a gross person, he kept putting her in the little short skirts. So when he picked her up, he tried to make sure that his arm and stuff was in the way so she wouldn't be exposed to this sick
Right. And it's crazy watching videos because, like, this was back when, like, YouTube was really early and they would do, like, extra videos. And you would see behind-the-scenes stuff and the difference in cast, like, feeling around. Because, like, you'd see videos with Dan and you could visibly see how uncomfortable these people were, and they couldn't say anything.
Everybody was so uncomfortable.
And he was so domineering in the workforce that, like, number one, the hashtag Me Too movement that came around, and you'll see all this in the documentary if you want to. We're not doing our best not to spoil anything from it because you do need to watch it. You do need to have your eyes open to what these children have gone through. It is it is an insane way that this man would run stuff. Like he would demand massages from a different woman from the cast.
Every single day.
Either the cast or the crew. One of the women would be chosen at multiple points throughout the day, mind you. It'd be like, oh, it's time for my 1 p.m. massage. You want to come massage me? Hey, it's time for my 3 p.m. massage.
Regardless of whatever they were doing, how much work they had to do for their actual job, he would force them to come rub his body.
And then in hindsight, you're thinking about this creepy, creepy man that's putting these children in all these situations, different that they're doing to the children's faces
Do we
with
have
different
to even say that word in relation to children? Because I know they did in the show, and to me, that made me actually sick to my stomach.
It's upsetting and it's sickening, but that's exactly what they did. Not to mention the fact that they had foot fetish left and right on those things.
Well,
Like I didn't even pay much attention to it growing up because as a kid
growing
you don't
up,
notice.
As a kid growing up, I'm like, why so much feet?
Yeah, what's the deal with
like
feet?
I didn't know foot fetishes were a thing as a child, but I'm like, why does everything have to do with their feet?
And
then seeing the stuff with Ariana Grande too.
Yeah,
that was heartbreaking. It all was, honestly.
That's what I was about to get into, because like I remember seeing some of those videos, and as a kid, you know, you're innocent, you're not thinking, is this sexual? But you watch it. I was seeing some clips from that, and it made me like uncomfortable. There's one where like, oh, you have to get juice out of a potato.
Yeah.
And it's
She's like strangling the potato with both hands, looking directly into the end of the potato, saying,
give me the juice.
"Come on, give me the juice."
It makes it so uncomfortable. And it's like I can't even imagine the level of just slime you have to be to think like, oh yeah, this will be funny, because it's like,
and it wasn't even for the main show. This was like for an internet series that anybody could stream and watch.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just it wasn't just on a kids network. It was on the internet. And not only that, but like even the one where she's like trying to drink the bottle of water upside down and she's just pouring it all over herself, just giggling maniacally. Like it's Dan Schneider has such a good punchable face. Like if you
extremely punchable.
Like I would imagine that goozle that he has under his throat right there would be excellent to do like a speed bag with.
Fist just so hard, so many times.
Just punch it to one side and see if it could thug it right back to the other side.
I just wonder how hard you can punch a man in the throat before you can feel his spine.
Right.
Because with that man, I'm going to see if that's possible.
It's worth a try, honestly.
That's not a threat.
No, we're just frustrated.
Just speculating, postulating.
Frustrated large Americans with microphones.
Yes.
.com.
The disgusting thing is a lot of that stuff had to go through multiple, like with network television, it goes through multiple layers of approval.
Well, see, Dan Schneider was the final layer of approval, though, and a lot of the disgusting jokes were his idea, so there wasn't anybody except for the higher executives over the company that could do anything about what Dan wanted.
And Dan was such a cash cow, literally, for the shows. Like they didn't want to say anything to him because they didn't want to wreck their money boat.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
That was the thing. Like they made it to where Dan basically he made so many hit television shows that he basically owned that network. So they couldn't sit there and say, "Hey, man, you're going too far," because he would say, "Well, then I'm leaving." And what are they going to do? Because I mean, we kind of see where Nickelodeon is now. It's basically just SpongeBob. Like I think I saw a thing where it's like the
Universal Studios, the theme park. Like as a kid, I wanted to go there so bad. Like it's defunct. Like it's dead and rotting.
Yeah,
like that's where Nickelodeon is now. It's pretty much dead and rotting.
So is it like an immediate backlash from what's happened with this, that it's like a ghost town there now or something? Or is it just...
it's been like that since like the early 2000s, because I watched a video about it.
Yeah.
Basically, from what my theory is, after Dan Schneider, quote unquote, voluntarily left Nickelodeon, it all just kind of went to shit and fell apart.
Yeah. I mean, Nick stopped.
They stopped getting the money, and more things started coming to light.
And it just now recently, came out in the big documentary that's shedding light on everything that's going to be just... It's honestly uncomfortable. And you've got certain people, too, that haven't made any statements about it. And it's not surprising, because come to find out now, there have been payoffs. Drake Bell had a co-star.
Josh Peck.
Which is weird. Last name connection.
I mean, they're of no relation to each other.
Yeah.
Did you dive into it? Did you check it out already?
Yes.
I figured you would.
I'm convinced Josh Peck took a payoff to not say anything, because he, in many interviews in many different places, was seen defending Dan Schneider, saying, "Oh, it wasn't that bad. He was a hard boss. Like, he demanded a lot of us, but he didn't do anything wrong. He didn't make overtly sexual comments and do anything unprofessional and inappropriate in the workplace. What are you talking about?
It's not a question.
That makes me go, just go ahead and write this down.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Josh Peck."
So it's a, I don't know. It's one of those things that it was a question. Like, whenever I was watching it, like, why isn't he on here? Why isn't he talking about this? Like, it seems like something that should be, oh shoot, I don't know.
Should be discussed, because like he was also, I mean, he was Drake Bell's co-star. He was, he was on the Amanda Show. He was on all that. Like,
they considered each other like brothers when they were doing the show.
His wife is divorcing him.
Good.
His wife is, that's the reason that I had a brain fart for a second. Couldn't remember what I was going to say. But the Josh Peck, his wife is divorcing him because she found out that he did take a payment from Dan Schneider in order to not speak out in this documentary. And of course, if somebody, like, honestly, you go French yourself, man. That is 100% correct. That to say, wait, you're telling me that there were things going on that put children's lives in danger and mess them up for the rest of their lives, and you don't want to speak light and truth to it? Bye, Felicia.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know
you deserve to be alone by yourself, never work again. You deserve the worst. That you deserve just as much as the people that actually did it, because you refused to say anything and accepted money to stay quiet.
And to me,
you are just as disgusting and culpable.
I think two sides to the coin is a great way to describe what we're talking about this episode. There is two sides to the coin. There is a lot of nostalgia and good memories attached to these shows that we used to watch as kids. But now, thanks to finding out of what these children went through that were producing these shows and being parts of all of this, finding out what they had to be involved with in order to stay involved, in order to be in the good graces of the golden cash cow, Dan Schneider, they had to be, number one, it wasn't even just sexual stuff. Like, it was workforce, like, harassment stuff that wasn't even like revolving around sexual for a little bit. It was, child labor laws and working them, say you're supposed to only work a child 30 hours a week kind of deal. And Dan Schneider would have those kids, we'll just be here just a little bit longer. It'll be okay. We'll be here just a little bit longer.
Working, like, not just adult time hours, but even overtime.
Yeah, they were working like 60 hours a week.
And also, he would scream and belittle these kids. Like, that's one thing. And
the kids were around, too, whenever he was doing, like, the stuff to the adults and embarrassing the adults. So, the kids were being pretty much just raised in this environment of this is okay.
Privy to everything. And the sad thing is, Drake Bell's father was his manager starting out, and he saw some things in there that he didn't agree with and was doing his best to be a shield to his child. And Brian Peck from the network talked Drake Bell into getting rid of his own father and going along and making his mother his manager, and then basically took Drake from his mom, like, oh, you can just stay with me because you live so far, from where everything's happening. And that's when the really bad molestation started happening.
Yep. And he had planned it all along. Brian had planned it all along.
He premeditated what he was wanting to do to this poor child. And the thing that I think broke me the most was when they asked Drake Bell's dad, what did you do when you found out about everything? He was like, I seen it was coming, and the man was bawling. Like, it was still raw and fresh to him.
Because he saw it was going to happen, but he was powerless to stop it because they took away the power from him.
Yeah.
And that's just something that we have to watch out for. We have to be cautious. We have to watch over the children that are involved in these industries and making sure that stuff doesn't happen to them the same way that it happened to these kids. And it's not our jobs as podcast hosts to do this. It's our jobs as people to look out for other people. And the defenseless ones among us are mostly the children. They are the ones who are the most defenseless against the actions of adults, and it's up to the rest of the adults to try to look out for them. Guys, listeners, thanks for being here.
Yeah, I've come across a meme the other day that perfectly sums up this episode.
Okay.
It's a collage picture of all the people from these children's shows that we've loved. It says, "I'm grateful for the memories of my childhood. I deeply regret that it came at the expense of yours."
Yep. And I agree wholeheartedly with that. This episode has been two sides of the coin. We've got our light side and our dark side, and it is a lot darker than we would ever have dreamt. And I'm sorry that they had to go through that. Everybody, just tune in to the Max Network. It's HBO Max. Get on there, watch the documentary Quiet on the Set if you have not yet. It's befuddling to know that all this stuff even happened the way that it happened. It will have a continuation happening with a more in-depth look into what went on with Drake. And just taking a look at all these childhood stars too that just took a hard turn after their time in Hollywood was over with them, like your Macaulay Culkins, your Lindsay Lohans, your Amanda Byneses. All of these people might have had shared trauma in the same situations, and we just never knew it. But regardless, you've been here, you've listened, and we appreciate you really much. Hey, Otto.
Yeah.
Say Dan Schneider walked into the room, and in his hand he was holding a really greasy-looking grape.
I would take it and shove it into his eye and then punch him in the face repeatedly until his breathing stopped.
Awesome. That's how you make the correct grape jam.
Yes.